In this episode, I'm going to share with you how to make your characters in your stories more relatable. Now, why does this matter? Because if your characters are relatable, people will connect with them emotionally. That means that the story will become something that is more memorable for them. It also helps them want to finish the story, finish the experience to see how it turns out. And another bonus that it will add to this interactive story that you're crafting is it will actually help you make the decisions more difficult for the player because they'll be making them in the context of that character, and that makes it an even better, more immersive experience. And if you're excited by that, then we'll get into it right now. Crafting relatable characters is super important for you to have a story that actually really resonates with people, that they actually finish, as I just said. But what happens is when we're designing stories for learning and development, when we're crafting stories that teach people something or are supposed to get people excited about a certain path, sometimes we focus so much on the technology or the decisions or the situations or the context that we don't think that crafting meaningful relatable characters that people really care about is that important. And I have to tell you, it is almost the most important thing, because if we care about a character, we will suffer through some mediocre decisions because we have connected to them. And so what I'm going to give you is some strategies here on how I teach this and how I formulate this person, this avatar, so that later what happens is all the things that I do to craft this persona, this relatable character up front, all that work is not necessarily going to make it into my final story, into my final interactive experience. But what it will do is it will give me some context on how to guide the rest of those situations in a way that is congruent and makes sense for where my character is and where I want them to go. All right, so let's get into what does that actually look like. So first off, especially if you're working in learning and development, you're going to have people that are going to be influencing this process with you, and they're going to be your SMEs or your subject matter experts. And your subject matter experts are people who are advising you on who your target audience is, and what they're doing is they're working from experience, right? So who they think this person is that needs this training, who needs the biggest ahas, who needs to become aware of this new thing. So that's great. This is a great place to start. But you cannot finish your development of a character, your avatar for your interactive story here. This information is not enough. There's going to be two other places that you're going to be pulling information from. So the SMEs are going to tell you a bit about who the target audience is. The next people that you're going to find out about who the target audience is and to really build this avatar is going to be your practitioners. Now, practitioners live in the world that your character is going to be living in as well. They are the people who, when you finish talking to them, they go back to work, and they are doing exactly the kind of work that maybe the person in your story is doing. So they're the people who actually live in that world. They might not be experts. They might simply be people who have really done well in the role in the past 6 months. They're new. And in fact, and we'll get into this in future videos about how to really choose these people, is these people here, they're chosen because they still remember what it's like to make those mistakes. They're actually still fresh enough to remember what they are. And what's beautiful about talking to practitioners versus subject matter experts is they haven't almost come to a place where they have a curse of knowledge where they don't remember the mistakes and cannot reflect back on them. There's very few subject matter experts that remember the mistakes that they made, because why in the world would you remember the mistakes? You just remember the right path, right? So what happens is the SMEs can give you some idea about who your target audience is, but it is the people who are basically the representation of your target audience that will give you the most accurate information about who this target audience is, how they think, What gets in their way? How do they make mistakes? Why do they make those mistakes? What kind of assumptions they come in with when they're making those decisions that people are going to have to make in your story. So this is great. Now, there's a third area that we're going to be getting this information from, and that is going to be, can you guess? You. You are also going to be influencing this avatar. And so this avatar becomes a composite. And I mean, in the end, remember, you're the creative director here. So you're not supposed to be just an order taker. If these people tell you one thing, these people tell you something else, it isn't like you have to choose sides. What's beautiful about your avatar is that they become, you can't multitask. Avatar is that they become a composite of your ideas. Now, here's what's really important. This is where most people mess up. When you craft your avatar, basically the person who not only, and this kind of happens kind of naturally, where the person who is your avatar, the target audience, usually ends up being the hero, the protagonist in your story. But one of the things that people do when they talk to the subject matter experts, the practitioners, and then you come into the picture, you make this person this generic blob. And you've seen this, like you've seen these interactive videos where they're like, meet Joe. Joe wants to be the number one salesperson in his department and help Joe be number one. Or meet Jane. Jane wants to be the number one employee, or she wants to solve this problem. They have no depth. They have no nuance. And they're not an individual person. And that's what the goal here is, that even though you're putting together a composite of from all these people, from all these conversations you've had about what these people do, what it really influences them, you're not mushing it up into one giant blob. What you're going to do is you're going to then be very judicious about pruning this person down to one individual. And I know a lot of people say this, they're like, how this story won't resonate with everybody because not everybody is going to be Patrick. Let's say this, I've decided that my avatar's name is Patrick. And you have to name your avatars, by the way, because people who have no names don't exist. So everybody has a name, right? Even if it's a nickname. So Patrick is going to be my avatar. Now, when I get, one of the things that happens is we think that we have to make Patrick a mashup of all the pieces so that everybody in the world will be able to relate to them. And that's not how character development works. Character development works in a way that what happens is you create a distinct person, and that distinct person has distinct characteristics, but it is those characteristics that make us want to help them or make us connect with them, because we can see that they're like people that we know and they're like us in some ways, not exactly like us. So one of the things you got to stay away from when you're crafting your stories is that you make a generic blob character that has no depth or is a composite of so many people. That's why you, as the creative director, really need to pare this down and say, okay, what are the pieces here that make a really genuine person that in some ways could be even based on one of these practitioners, but you remember that as a storyteller, you're going to amp up a lot of things in this person's life. You're going to add things that make sense and also turn the emotional context of this person's journey up to like 11, because in storytelling, you have to do that because we want to make the journey seem like it's a big deal. And guess what? Every day when you go to work, you do your thing, it's mundane, it's a rut, it's not that exciting. So the goal of the story is to turn up those things that to all of us seem kind of mundane. Now to Patrick, they might seem really, really intense. So the thing that One of the other things that really I see failing here is you have to give this person a reason to want to do, to want to be the best. Because just wanting to be the best, nobody wakes up and says, I want to be the best. There's a reason behind it. So here's some things that Patrick needs in order to be a genuine character. And remember, they're inspired by real people, but also you are crafting them and you're pulling in elements that are the most important for you to create a character that will pull the story along and that will resonate with the people. Okay? All right. So here's some things. So it cannot be a generic person. Not generic. Give them a real name. I usually get inspired by my friends or family. Then I give people names. You're writing this person up. Like you're deciding how to actually make this, like if one of the things I want you to think about is you want to write them up in a way that if they found this description of themselves, your perfect person, then they would look at it and say, whoa, Anna really knows me. She's written everything about me here. It's like she stole a page from my diary. Remember, this person is not perfect. When I say perfect person, they're perfect for your story. They have flaws, they have goals. So here's some other things. You want to have some details about them. Like you're having fun with this. You are creating your own universe. And in this person is inspired by the reality, the context of your work, but also you get to choose. So they can have some fun, quirky details about them. What do they like to do in their spare time? Obviously, make it something that would be based on real people, right? The other thing is they have to have a motive. Why are they doing all these things? Most people don't want to become the best salesperson because they want more money. It's about status. It's about showing up, let's say, to their next high school reunion and not being the loser. That's huge, especially if you were like the bullied kid, right? That makes a big difference. Maybe they want to be the one that when they pick up their kid from work, they're not in their worst car in the neighborhood. They actually, when they show up, their kid is proud to get in that car. You don't have to go around the block. Maybe that's their motive. They want to get a nice car to pick up their kids from school up in. So one of the things you want to do is dig deep and ask a lot of why questions, just to yourself even, or to your practitioners, because sometimes practitioners, when you interview them, they'll tell you things and you're like, why did you want to become the best? And you want to talk to people who are exemplary, of course, but you want to ask them, why did you want to become the best person? How come everybody else is, how come it only took you 6 months to get here? What drives you? And then when they give you the reason, keep on asking why. Because a lot of times people give you the answer that they think you expect. But if you dig a little bit deeper, they'll give you the answer that they truly believe. Not everybody's not going to be that open with you. But if you're open, persuasive, and listening, they will tell you. And then you can choose the ones that really fit your avatar the best way. And then it goes back into your motive, and you can amp that up, right? You can add nuances there. You can add details that they didn't give you, but you think would make it even more compelling. And then the other piece is this idea of connection. What happens is nobody exists in isolation. Nobody was just born and without a mom or a dad or siblings or friends or colleagues. So one of the things you really want to do is anchor that person. They're not a free-floating character. They have responsibilities or they have attachments. And to give this person those attachments makes them relatable because they're somebody's brother, sister, friend, caregiver. All those things make somebody relatable. So when you're thinking about your stories and how can we make somebody relatable to all the people in our organization? Well, you can make them a dad, you can make them a brother, you can make them a husband, you can make them a caregiver to, let's say, their elderly aunt. You can give them a reason, a motive for why they're doing things. And the more detailed you get, the more you build up this person, there's two parts that kind of fall into it, right? One of the parts is that obviously it helps you craft a character that people will care about. But then the other piece is that once you've decided who this person is that you're designing this interactive story for and about, it gives you this kind of feeling of empathy, a feeling of caring about that person. You want to care about that person, because then it will not only help you craft a better story and craft more meaningful decisions later on for this character in this context, but what it will also do is help you think about, this is going to be the person going through my story. Are they having a good experience? Are they getting the value that I want them to get out of it? So it will help personalize that experience for you as well. Because guess what? This is you. This is you going to be driving it. You're going to be getting people excited about stories. You're going to be, halfway through and everybody's like, do we still, what do we want to finish this project? We got so many priorities. You're going to be like, yes, this is the most important thing. Your energy is going to come into it, but a part of it is you selling yourself on these projects, on selling yourself on the people that you're helping. And by doing this, you are personalizing that experience, and it works. You've seen those commercials for commercials. They're ads for helping people in different countries. Let's say something happens and there's a huge storm and it basically breaks down a bunch of homes. Nobody shows pictures of the entire place getting destroyed. They show a single person. Usually it's a child who's lost everything. We connect with individuals. So do not dilute your avatar, because the more specific, the more personal you can make them, the more real you can make them, the more people will connect with them and care about the outcome of that story. And so when you're crafting your experiences, once again, make sure that you are pulling in from your subject matter experts. Yes, you're pulling in from definitely practitioners, people who live in that world, who when they hang up, they're going back, hang up on the phone with you, they're going back to the actual, the work that they're actually doing, and it's the real thing. Now, for those of you who are listening on the podcast, there is definitely some visuals that I shared in this episode, but so I'll put the link underneath the video for you to check this out, because there's definitely a different experience when you're having the visuals there. Now, so the key here, and I just wanted to stress it, is that if you are crafting characters that people deeply resonate with, there will be multiple benefits for that experience for you. And it's super crucial, because we want people to finish our experiences, and that's what happens when you craft a compelling character. They want to know how it ends, which is huge. The second piece is that because they're connecting with that character emotionally, memories and emotion are closely tied. So if you have something that people connect with emotionally, they'll be more apt to remember it. Especially if you have a learning story, this is imperative, right? Why would you share a story if you don't want people to remember it? You want people to remember it. Emotional connection helps. And then the other piece is that when people connect with your character in a deep way, in a meaningful way, they care about their journey, they care about the outcome. What happens is the decisions that you place, that the character has to make, makes those decisions more difficult, because now you're not considering them in your context or just haphazardly choosing. You care about the success of this character. So what happens is your decisions will become more nuanced, more difficult, and you can also leverage the avatar, basically this person's, Patrick's perspective, to craft decisions and alternative options that make sense for his context, which is really cool, because that allows you to sneak in some ideas and information that people, just from their own perspective, coming in from their own point of view, would not consider. But now if they've connected with Patrick, they might be able to consider things from his perspective. And that's something that I'll get into in definitely other videos, because we're going to talk about this forever, but this is super fun. I want you to have fun with this. I want you to create a person that is that you'd like to hang out with, that you really want to help, that you'll have some serious empathy for, because that makes a huge difference. We have to have empathy for our players, for our learners, and this is one way to really do that. Write them up and really pretend you're writing a page out of their diary. Now, definitely these are things that I get into in my interactive storytelling coaching program, and I'd love to know if this is something that would be a good fit for you. So usually the people that join us are already, they're not intimidated by learning or instructional design. They're not intimidated by technology, or it's something that they know is figure-outable. But one of the things they're really looking for is a community of people who are practicing this daily, who are practicing this and publishing projects that not only show how the storytelling frameworks and the things I'm teaching you here can be applied in many, many, many different contexts, but also to be around a community of people who understand how this skill set can actually really amp up and amplify, basically add to the talent stack of somebody who is a full stack learning and development professional. Because to me, in traditional instructional design, we talk about things like, knowledge and skills. Motivation is kind of glossed over. Motivation is kind of like this underneath thing. And I want to offer you that if motivation and persuasion and excitement and getting people to become aware and have a bunch of ahas, if those things have always been on the periphery for you, but you'd like to now become somebody who is able to masterfully also integrate them into the learning experiences, we gotta talk. So underneath this video, or underneath in the description, if you're listening to the podcast, what there'll be is a link to book a Zoom call with me. Now, on that Zoom call, we basically talk about what the program is, if your goals and what you're trying to do with yourself, where you're at, if that actually aligns with developing the skill set and taking yourself to that next level. And then basically we decide if it makes sense for you to join our community, which is awesome, because I think one of the hugest benefits is you can only really work on your own projects and see your own projects. Sometimes we just, see the things just in our context. But now all of a sudden, if you join a community of people who are focused on the same goal and on the same frameworks and and building the same skill set, then you're surrounded by that exclusively. And what it becomes a part of your professional repertoire, because now you're seeing how the same frameworks and the same stories can be applied in 50 plus different contexts. And it becomes something where now you're gaining the experience from those other projects without having to have had worked on all of them. But the opportunity is that if you now have a new project or a new idea, you can now source how it's been done and if it's been done successfully in other areas that are similar, which is so cool. It just becomes a part of your skill set now too. And you can leverage those other people's experiences by simply asking them, hey, what are some tips you could give me? I'm starting a project here. So it just becomes a really great way for everybody to learn. It's kind of selfish. I get to learn every single time somebody launches a new project. I get to be a part of that as well, which is amazing. But as far as crafting relatable characters, hopefully this was something that you found useful and enjoyable, and it's something that you will integrate into your work in developing your own stories and interactive experiences. If you enjoyed this video and you want more like this, make sure you like the video. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Thanks so much for being here. And also make sure you subscribe, because I will be having way more in-depth storytelling videos coming out very, very soon. And I usually release them twice a week. So thanks so much for being here. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll talk to you soon.